Machu Picchu is the most impressive living testimony of Inca civilization.
What we don't see is that 60% is underground. It's absolutely breathtaking.
Deep in the mountains of Peru, Machu Picchu has always been a place of wonder and mystery. For over a century, explorers and tourists believed its greatest secrets had already been uncovered.
Look at that. There we go. Who's that? That could be one of them. Yeah, it looks like it's on a bit of a terrace.
Recently, researchers stumbled upon something completely unexpected. Hidden beneath layers of stone and jungle was a chamber that had remained unseen for hundreds of years.
There was metals inside this hidden chamber, gold, silver, and other types of metallic objects.
Silent and untouched, it waited, concealed from the world. What was found inside is now challenging everything historians thought they knew about this ancient site.
In the most simple terms, what are we looking for, feature-wise, that might be from before the Incas?
Revealing a new chapter in Machu Picchu's story that no one ever imagined. What counts as Machu Picchu? High in the Peruvian Andes, the jungle hides more than just trees. For centuries, it has covered the remains of a lost world. This world is made up of stone temples, sacred water channels, and hidden pathways that stretch through the mountains. When most people think of Machu Picchu, they picture the famous view seen in travel brochures, a cluster of ancient stone terraces sitting high on a mountain ridge. However, that well-known citadel is only a small part of the site. Beyond it lies a much larger area, covering more than 125 square miles. This wider sanctuary is full of places that have not yet been explored and still hold many mysteries. The people who built this incredible site were the Inca, one of the most advanced civilizations in pre-Columbian South America. At their peak, the Inca Empire stretched across modern-day Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and parts of Chile and Argentina. They were expert builders and engineers who constructed vast road systems, agricultural terraces, and stone cities, all without modern machinery.
The Inca are really well known for their incredible stonework, which is called ashlar masonry, and the stones fit together perfectly without any mortar.
The stones at Machu Picchu were carefully shaped and fitted together so precisely that they have survived centuries of earthquakes and harsh weather. This mastery allowed the Inca to control a vast territory and link communities spread across rugged terrain. Machu Picchu was one of their crown achievements, serving both practical and spiritual roles. Physically, it functioned as a royal estate and a strategic site for agriculture and governance, with terraces, storage areas, and housing for nobles. Spiritually, it was believed to be a sacred center, where the Inca performed religious ceremonies to honor their gods and connect with the heavens, mountains, and natural forces they deeply respected. Beyond the famous citadel lies a network of temples, terraces, and ancient trails that once connected different parts of the sanctuary. Many of these areas are still swallowed by thick jungle. Over the centuries, vegetation grew over buildings and roads, hiding them completely from view. Archaeologists believe that even today, large portions of this landscape have yet to be explored or even identified. Why so much remains hidden comes down to location and preservation rules. The sanctuary sits in a remote region surrounded by dangerous cliffs, fast-moving rivers, and dense forests. These natural barriers make exploration extremely difficult. For much of modern history, researchers focused almost entirely on the citadel, which was accessible and already famous. Strict conservation laws added another layer of challenge, limiting excavation to protect the fragile ruins from damage. This left huge areas virtually untouched and fueled centuries of mystery. Myths and stories began to spread about secret temples, sealed tombs, and chambers hidden deep in the mountains waiting to be discovered. Some areas outside the citadel have gained attention in recent years. Cochabamba, for example, lies several miles away and contains intricate stone channels and ceremonial baths. Huayna Picchu, the towering peak behind the main citadel, holds mysterious caves and temples like the Temple of the Moon. These locations remained overlooked for generations because reaching them meant dangerous climbs or risky river crossings. Explorers knew they existed, but lacked the tools to study them properly. That began to change when researchers introduced modern mapping technology. For the first time, they could begin to see through the dense jungle and uncover structures that had been invisible for centuries, revealing a much larger, more complex Machu Picchu than anyone had imagined. The scans that pierced the jungle. When researchers recently began using LIDAR technology to study Machu Picchu from above, LIDAR is a mapping tool that sends out laser pulses from drones or small aircraft. These lasers penetrate the dense jungle canopy and create a three-dimensional image of the ground below. This was not a simple tool or a routine upgrade. It was a game changer. The team launched drones and small aircraft over the thick jungle canopy, flying low and steady over terrain that no one could safely navigate on foot. From the ground, the forest appeared impenetrable, but from the air, the drones fired thousands of tiny laser pulses every second. These pulses cut through the gaps in the leaves and branches, bouncing off the ground below before returning to the sensors. Each return signal was carefully recorded, allowing researchers to build an incredibly precise three-dimensional map of the entire area. When the first scans appeared on their screens, the reaction was immediate. At first, it looked like just another topographic image, but then unmistakable patterns began to emerge. Straight lines appeared where nature would never have placed them. Flat, rectangular shapes suggested foundations buried beneath the earth. Entire terraces, invisible to anyone standing on the surface, were suddenly visible in perfect detail. Some of the most shocking discoveries came at Cochabamba. Before LiDAR, it had seemed like little more than an overgrown clearing. The scans revealed that it was actually a complex ceremonial center. Hidden chambers, carved stone channels, and carefully engineered terraces were all laid out with a precision that spoke of advanced planning. Researchers were stunned. The discoveries did not stop there. As more scans were processed, other hidden structures began to appear in areas that had never been studied. Some looked like platforms for ceremonies. Others contained clusters of niches, possibly for sacred objects or symbols. The scans raised another, even deeper question. When exactly had all of this been built? Now, with new technology reshaping our view of the landscape, researchers turned to cutting-edge science to test that timeline, and what they found would rewrite history. The date shock that changes everything. For many years, historians believed they had a clear timeline for Machu Picchu. Almost everything we thought we knew about when it was built came from Spanish colonial chronicles written after the Spanish conquest. These documents placed the site's construction in the mid-1400s during the rule of Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui, one of the most powerful leaders in the Inca Empire. Over time, this date became widely accepted. It was repeated in museums, books, and classrooms, shaping the narrative that Machu Picchu was a late project built as Pachacuti's royal estate and ceremonial retreat. However, there was a problem with this approach. The Spanish chronicles were written decades after the events they described. They were based on memory, hearsay, and sometimes political motives. The writers had never seen Machu Picchu themselves and relied on second-hand information. This left historians with a timeline that was widely accepted, but never scientifically proven. Archaeologists decided to put this traditional timeline to the test. Instead of relying on old texts, they turned to physical evidence buried at the site. Teams collected tiny organic samples from carefully sealed layers around walls, floors, and construction areas. These included bits of charcoal from ancient fires, plant fibers, and other material left behind during the original building and use of the site. The goal was to determine the actual age of these layers using radiocarbon dating, a method that measures the remaining traces of carbon in once living material. The samples were analyzed using accelerator mass spectrometry, or AMS, a highly advanced form of radiocarbon dating. This method can detect incredibly small amounts of carbon with great accuracy. The labs also checked each sample for contamination and then calibrated the results using tree ring data to make sure the dates matched real calendar years. When the results came back, they were nothing short of shocking. Instead of confirming the mid-1400s timeline, the data showed that some of the structures at Machu Picchu were already in use as early as the 1420s and 1430s. This meant that activity at the site began decades earlier than anyone had believed. In other words, Machu Picchu was not a quick project built late in the empire's history. It was already an active, important site before Pachacuti reached the peak of his power. These results were peer-reviewed and published, giving them strong credibility within the scientific community. This discovery changed everything. If the site's origins go back earlier than expected, then the purpose of Machu Picchu must also be reconsidered. It may not have begun as a private royal retreat at all. Instead, it could have been part of a larger religious landscape. The new timeline also highlights the limits of relying solely on historical writings. The Spanish accounts still have value, but they reflect a narrow perspective shaped by politics and incomplete knowledge. Scientific dating, on the other hand, comes directly from sealed layers untouched since the Inca walked those paths. It offers a timeline based on physical proof, not rumor or interpretation. Even with this breakthrough, many questions remain. Radiocarbon dating cannot tell us which ruler gave the orders or why certain areas were built first. It only shows that the site was active earlier than previously believed. Some researchers now argue that the sanctuary began as a place of pilgrimage and ritual gatherings long before it became associated with royal power. Others think that royal and religious uses may have overlapped from the very beginning. These revelations completely changed how researchers understood Machu Picchu. Knowing that the site was active much earlier than anyone believed gave new importance to the areas still buried under the jungle. It was no longer enough to study scans and maps. To truly understand why Machu Picchu was built and how it was used, a team of archaeologists decided to physically explore the hidden chambers that had been detected through advanced scanning technology. The team knew the process would be daunting. The terrain was rough, the structures were fragile, and even reaching some of these spaces involved serious risks. Despite the challenges, they pressed forward, determined to uncover what had been sealed away for centuries. So, what's inside? When the team of researchers finally stepped inside the newly uncovered area, they knew immediately that they were entering a place that had been closed off for a very long time. According to early reports, which have not yet been officially verified, this part of Machu Picchu had been sealed for centuries. The first thing they noticed was the air. It was thick, damp, and stale, with a smell that came from years of being untouched. The walls were partly covered with roots and vines that had pushed their way in through tiny cracks, showing just how long nature had been trying to reclaim the space. The ground was uneven, and every step had to be taken carefully. Some of the archaeologists later reported that the moment felt strange and unsettling, like they were stepping directly into the past. As their lights moved across the walls, they began to understand that this was no ordinary space. The stones were carefully fitted together, showing a high level of skill. The space looked like it was built for ceremonial or spiritual use. The first major feature they found was a series of stone basins. These basins were carved from solid rock, and each one was connected to the next, so that water could flow from the top basin down into the others in a very controlled pattern. Researchers believe this design was deliberate. Based on similar findings at other Inca sites, they think these basins were used for purification rituals. In these ceremonies, participants may have washed themselves or certain objects before taking part in other important events. Reports suggest, but have not been confirmed, that these spaces might have been restricted to a small group of people, such as priests or royal attendants. The location, far away from public areas, supports the idea that this was a private and highly protected place. As the team moved deeper inside, they discovered smooth, flat stones that appeared to be altars. Some of these stones had grooves carefully cut into their surfaces. The exact purpose of these grooves is not fully known, but some researchers believe they were used to direct liquids, such as water or offerings, during ceremonies. Along the walls, there were rows of carved niches. These niches were empty, but they were shaped in a way that suggests they once held sacred objects, ritual tools, or symbolic items. The fact that nothing was left behind makes it difficult to know exactly what these items were. Some reports even speculate they may have been removed deliberately by the Inca themselves before abandoning the site. Others believe they may have decayed over time if they were made from materials such as wood or cloth. The most surprising discovery came when researchers examined the structure below the visible floors. They found a complex system of narrow channels built underneath the states. These channels were designed to guide water through different levels before it drained back toward a nearby river. According to studies, this level of engineering required advanced planning and a deep understanding of how water moves through the landscape. This was not simply a practical drainage system. In Inca culture, water was considered sacred. It symbolized life, renewal, and a connection to the spiritual world. This suggests that the channels were part of a larger ritual system. The movement of water through space may have been seen as a sacred act, blending the natural environment with religious practice. This discovery challenged long-standing beliefs about Machu Picchu. For many years, the site was believed to be mainly a royal retreat for the Inca elite, a place where rulers came to rest and escape the demands of the empire. However, the newly uncovered area suggests that Machu Picchu had a broader role. It was likely part of a network of sacred spaces where spiritual ceremonies were carried out. Water appears to have been central to these rituals, which may have involved purification, offerings, and symbolic acts connecting the people to the mountains and the gods. There were no treasures of gold or silver inside the chamber. No royal mummies or glittering artifacts were found. According to reports, what was discovered was more valuable in a different way. It provided a rare look into how the Incas saw their world. The precision of the engineering and the care put into every detail showed that they did not separate their practical needs from their spiritual beliefs. Every stone served a purpose that was both functional and sacred. But even with these discoveries, many questions remain. If this hidden chamber existed for centuries without anyone knowing, could there be other rooms still sealed behind walls or beneath the ground? The secret door myth and what authorities said. In the middle of the 2010s, a sensational story began to spread through travel blogs, news headlines, and tour groups visiting Machu Picchu, guides whispered to visitors about a mysterious sealed doorway hidden deep within the citadel. Independent researchers claimed to have discovered hollow spaces behind a wall near one of the most visited landmarks in the site, the Temple of the Three Windows. This temple, known for its 3 large openings perfectly aligned with the rising sun, has long been considered one of the most sacred and symbolically important structures in the citadel. The claim was based on ground-penetrating radar scans. These scans reportedly showed neat rectangular cavities behind a section of stonework where no official records marked any rooms. To the public, the meaning seemed clear. If there was empty space behind a wall, there might be a hidden chamber. As the rumor grew, speculation became more dramatic. Some explorers declared that this could be the tomb of Pachacuti, the legendary Inca ruler often linked to the construction of Machu Picchu. Others went even further, suggesting that mummies, priceless artifacts, or even gold offerings could be locked inside. Travel magazines and TV shows rushed to cover the story. Social media exploded with excitement. For a brief moment, it felt like the world might be on the verge of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made. But not everyone believed the claims. Some archaeologists cautioned that the evidence was far from conclusive. Ground-penetrating radar does not produce photographs. It sends signals into the ground and creates patterns based on how those signals bounce back. Interpreting these patterns is difficult. Natural cracks in the stone or spaces intentionally left for drainage can appear as perfect voids on a scan. In other words, what looked like a hidden room could simply be part of the original construction, or even an illusion caused by the equipment. The excitement eventually reached officials in Peru and international heritage groups like UNESCO. They reviewed both the radar results and the proposed plans for excavation. The plans involved drilling into or removing stones from the original walls. Inca stonework is held together by precise, interlocking stones without mortar. Even a small disturbance could destabilize an entire section of the citadel. Drilling a single hole might change how weight and water flow through the structure, leading to cracks or permanent damage. Faced with these risks, the Peruvian Ministry of Culture made a clear decision. The wall would not be opened. UNESCO supported this ruling, emphasizing that preservation must come before exploration. Without absolute proof of what lay behind the wall, and without a safe method to reach it, the structure would remain untouched. Instead, researchers were encouraged to continue studying the area with non-invasive tools like advanced radar, 3D scanning, and detailed monitoring. The decision frustrated some members of the public who were eager for a dramatic reveal. It also disappointed a few researchers who remained convinced that something extraordinary might be hidden there. However, many archaeologists defended the choice, warning that one reckless excavation could set a dangerous precedent. If every potential void were opened, it could permanently harm not only Machu Picchu, but also heritage sites around the world. Today, the doorway remains sealed. The rumor has not faded, though. Tourists still ask guides about it, and the story continues to thrive online. For those who want to see what a real interior sacred space looks like, there is a proven example. A challenging climb up Huayna Picchu leads to a documented cave temple with carved niches and intricate stonework. This temple shows how the Incas shaped the inside of a mountain for religious purposes. Unlike the rumors, this site is real and accessible, offering a glimpse of what might exist within Machu Picchu's hidden places without putting the sanctuary at risk. What a real subterranean space looks like here. Huayna Picchu is famous for its narrow, challenging trails and panoramic views. but it also holds one of the most intriguing ceremonial structures in the entire sanctuary, the Temple of the Moon, also known as the Gran Caverna. The Temple of the Moon sits within a natural cave, the Inca carefully shaped and reinforced. Rangers and archaeologists have studied it for decades, and its features are visible without the need for advanced scanning technology. To reach it, visitors must follow a side trail that winds down from Machu Picchu's summit to a ledge halfway up the mountain. There, the cave opens into a space that blends natural rock formations with precise Inca stonework. Unlike the rumors of hidden doors, this is a place we can see and explore directly, providing a reliable reference point for understanding how the Inca designed interior spaces. Inside the cave, the architecture reflects careful planning. Walls are built with closely fitted stones, a hallmark of Inca engineering, creating stability without the use of mortar. The space is divided into distinct zones. Along the walls, there are niches carved to hold offerings or ceremonial items. Flat platforms, some low to the ground, suggest areas where objects were placed or rituals were performed. A carved stone bench runs along part of the cave, likely used during ceremonies. Steps connect different levels of the interior, guiding movement from an outer area into deeper, more enclosed sections. The layout feels intentional, with a clear flow that directs both people and offerings through the space. Evidence inside the cave adds to its story. Archaeologists have found foot-like residue near certain stones, indicating that fires or incense may have been used in ceremonies. According to some reports, the acoustics inside the cave create an unusual effect, with voices carrying in a way that would enhance chants or prayers. This acoustic detail has not been studied formally, but it fits with the idea of a space designed to heighten ritual experiences. Some researchers also note how certain openings frame views of nearby peaks and valleys, suggesting a symbolic connection between the cave and the surrounding sacred landscape. These interpretations remain speculative, but they align with the Inca practice of treating mountains and caves as living elements within their spiritual worldview. The construction itself shows impressive engineering skill. The stones were cut to match the cave's irregular shape, allowing weight to transfer safely to the surrounding bedrock. Drainage paths were built to channel water away, protecting the space from erosion or flooding. Outside the cave, there is a small terrace that likely served as a preparation area, where participants could gather before entering the sacred space. This design mirrors other Inca ceremonial sites, where access was carefully controlled to maintain a sense of progression and sanctity. By studying this cave, authorities also better understand why caution is essential when exploring other potential voids within the sanctuary. The balance of stones inside a cave temple is delicate. Removing even a single block could destabilize the structure or alter how moisture flows through the mountain. Once damage occurs, it cannot be fully repaired. This is why officials insist on non-invasive methods and extreme care. Ultimately, these discoveries highlight the spiritual depth and engineering brilliance of the Inca civilization. They remind us that Machu Picchu's story is not about lost treasure or secret tombs. It is about a civilization's deep connection to the natural world, built into stone and water. The newly mapped spaces, the revised timeline, and the mystery of what still lies undiscovered all point to one truth. There is far more to this sanctuary than meets the eye.